Hello, I'm Bagrat Lalayan, the host of Awakening, a Journey of the Soul channel. If you're here, it means you know that there are many roads to God, but the truth is only one. Thank you for subscribing to my channel, and please feel free also to leave your comments, your feedback. I'm very much interested to learn from you. Today, I'm with my friend Joe Pauswinsky, and it means that we'll have another very interesting and insightful conversation. How are you today, Joe? And
Uh,
happy Memorial Day.
Fine, thank you.
All right, so let's start with my first question. It's a quite general one. A magic, esoterics, miracles, mysticism, mediumship. People have always been intrigued by all these terms. So, what is your understanding of all these different spiritual practices and experiences? Did you have a chance to go through all of them during your life?
Well, one of the things is magic. Okay, I have a cell phone here. Whoops, put it here so you can say it. So with
What
this,
is about?
I'm talking to someone anywhere on the planet. Now, if you had this 100 years ago, they would say it was magic. So there are certain things. Magic to me is just an easy way to describe something you can't describe any other way. You can't understand it. I think it's sort of like a temporary definition that eventually people, once they get knowledge, it will change from magic into knowledge. Okay. Uh, let's see. The other thing, the terms are mainly ways to describe, like take esoteric, or take occult. Uh, if you listen, it depends which ears you have when you hear the word occult. Sometimes when you hear the word occult, it means connected to the devil and spooky and walking on the dark side with danger. But occult, in its deepest meaning, just means hidden from the eyes. So that a lot of the things which we discuss are about the occult, about the things that are not generally seen and observed and understood. Esoteric is a catch-all phrase that a lot of people use sort of in a prideful manner to say, "Oh, well, I have your knowledge, but I also have esoteric knowledge," uh, which means something deeper, a deeper truth upon which the normal truth is buried. I'm trying to remember the historian who said you start out with history and you go if you go backwards, you have history, then history becomes tradition, and then tradition becomes legend, and then legend becomes myth, and then myth becomes occult. So as you go backwards, they take on a different perspective depending where you are on your level of vibration and your level of understanding. And it's just the same way we talked once about coincidences. Uh, Coincidence to me is just the ability to see something that's right there in plain sight because you have a predisposition to be able to see it. Not that you have a special skill, but you have knowledge that this may actually be a thing. And a very important idea about signs is to understand how our brain works. In America, what would you think is the most misunderstood sign? You're walking down the street, you see this sign, and you say, "Oh, that can't be true."
In general, on the streets?
Yeah,
Like,
just walking down the streets in New York City.
It's a good question because there are so many
Okay.
unrealistic things in New York City. Probably traffic lights, no?
Yeah.
The change of the
Yeah. You,
colors. Or,
you, you don't believe them, right? Okay.
yeah.
Here's a sign that nobody believes. You ready? Wet paint.
Hmm.
Whenever you see a sign that says wet paint, what does a typical person do? They touch it.
See it. Yeah,
They
catch it. Yes.
they
Yeah,
want
yeah.
because
The
they
people
don't.
are always curious, yes, to do it.
Yeah.
Something opposite, yes.
So that's the problem with signs, and you can choose to disbelieve them too, and that takes a valuable clue away from you. Um, it's My wife Annette and I were in a graveyard yesterday because her her aunt uh, died at a very young age, and her body was buried in Oddfellows Cemetery. Now, Oddfellows is a semi-mystical group, and they have traditions. But what happened is that they sold the cemetery, and the body was relocated somewhere else. And Annette really wanted to go and place some flowers on her aunt's grave, whom she had never met, just that kind of a longing to have a connection with family. So we went through and we had to start out with papers. And these papers said, this will be in this location, this lot, this row, this grave. Of course, when you got there, none of those markers, yesterday was the Sunday, none of those markers was visible. And there was no one in the office to help guide you. But some person was walking along and she said, well, it's funny you should ask. And that's always a good beginning thing. My dad used to be a caretaker here, and he knows this cemetery like the back of his hand. And so she called her dad, and we found what we were looking for. So is that, that's all an example of these things. If you have an idea of what you are looking for, and you have an idea of where to look and how to look, and you're willing to listen to the answers of other people. You may not believe everything they say because, quite honestly, sometimes parts of what they say will be wrong. But the thing is, if you can pick out the little bit that will help you on your path, that's really the key to almost all of these definitions. These definitions are because the human brain has a necessity to classify things, to make it fall into neat and orderly patterns. Well, one of the things I found out on my journey is you can't do that because what are the likelihoods that a person from Philadelphia and a person from Armenia will meet each other at a restaurant in Paris because all the other tables are full somehow and develop a lifelong relationship.
Yeah.
So,
And here we are,
and here we are.
chatting here. Mhm. No, it's a great example, and you're absolutely right. It's seek and you will find. So it's been said many, many years ago, right? So I absolutely agree about the magic. And as we know in the Rosicrucian tradition, the magic doesn't exist. It's actually our mental attitude, right? This is the perception of the reality. If you want to attract some dark forces, from anybody else, you will do it. But if you know that the magic doesn't exist in reality, so then you are protected. But esoteric science is something different. This is really knowledge and wisdom, which was hidden from the religion or from the, I would say, open or exoteric teachings, right? So how do you see these traditions, right? These the traditions of the esoteric wisdom. So some people say that, we heard about esoteric since the time of Atlantis. Some of them, they link the first, hidden knowledge and wisdom with the ancient Egypt. So, who are those who are keepers of this esoteric teaching?
Well, in one sense, you are, and in one sense, I am, because people will come to us and they will say, I know you can help me with this. And what you are doing, as I say, one of the sometimes people have described me as a library where they can come and get information. Sometimes people have described me as a lighthouse. But now, a lighthouse does two things. The light directs you, but it also protects you because a lighthouse is usually where there is a dangerous spot for ships. So it's a warning. So the idea of esoteric knowledge, is there some basic thing that religion can't filter into its system? Oh, I think religion sort of takes esoteric knowledge and cuts off the bits that are not convenient and moves forward with ones that make sense. And I'm not saying that in a negative sense. I'm saying that in a human sense. We can't understand everything. We can't believe everything. So we have to have some sort of firm groundwork. And I think if we're fortunate, we find the esoteric knowledge, which is the bedrock. That is what everything else is built upon. Now, how are they going to preserve this? Okay, one of the ways of preserving things was to have people who told stories. And they would, like the poems of the Greek guy Homer are really long, but it's interesting. How do we remember stuff? You can remember the lyrics to a song from when you were growing up. Now, why is that? It's just because that implants it in our mind. The rhyming nature, the musical nature, they allow us to remember something. So that helps keep it alive for someone who knows how to tap into it. The people who know how to tap into it, they're few and far between. But they are constantly trying to find ways to collect and preserve esoteric knowledge. And that's the difficulty. And part of what they do is they have to find worthy recipients of it and ask each of them to remember a part. But then again, of course, if there are 10 parts and one person transitions to another level of existence, maybe the knowledge that he had is lost forever. So you have to have backup plans, and that's what it is. Now, the idea about Egypt being the source of stuff, if you go into stuff, if you go into the history of the historical Jesus, when he was born and the King Herod said to kill all the new people, all the newborn males, Joseph and Mary, according to the Bible, fled with Jesus where? Into Egypt.
Egypt. Yeah.
Would they go
Mhm.
to Egypt other than it was the place they had come from? I mean, there's little hints like that that a part of this knowledge might have had centers where wise men were, and a wise man is not going to be someone like that priest in Ethiopia who supposedly guards the Ark of the Covenant in a fantastic shrine and everything like that. A wise man is someone who holds this particular piece of knowledge. And that's why we should always treat everyone we meet with respect because they may be holding some magical nugget of esoteric knowledge.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. So, in other words, the mysticism is actually the experience of the direct communication with the divine, with God. So, when you just cut the middleman and you
Yeah.
go directly in the communication with the divine and your master within your soul. So, what will be your advice to those who are just at the beginning of their spiritual journey? So, because it's very easy to, you know, to lose the faith, right? And to be misguided, for example, in this journey. So, what will be your recommendation?
Well, as you know, I had a unique kind of problem because I was gifted with the ability to do many of these things, and I was trying to find out why I could do them. And different traditions had different answers. But uh, if you are just starting on this path, be strong in your connection with God, however you define him or her to be. Be strong in that connection. Uh, if someone says to do something that sounds good, understand the difference between thinking about something and feeling something. One of the things we talk about frequently is uh, we don't want you to believe in God. We want you to know that there is God. Because when you know that there is God, you can progress from there. Just the same way you don't believe in gravity. You know there's gravity. So therefore you can understand why if you let go of a rock, it'll fall. So the most basic thing is, oh, this is a long path, and it is not a simple path. Up until about 10 years ago, when cell phones were introduced and all had GPS, you really had to find your way. Now you just say, hey, Siri, get me driving directions to such and such a place. And
Or you just activated my Siri on my phone when you said that. You see the magic. You
yeah,
activated my phone on the distance, right? By saying the magic words like
yeah,
those, right? Hey Siri. Yeah, like
but,
abracadabra. Oh, yeah,
yeah.
just calm
But,
down. Yeah.
but that brings up another point. What we're talking about is vibrations, and the vibrations will activate your ability to communicate. So before you had to look into gigantic books of maps or have written down directions or things like that. Now you have Siri or whatever guide you turn by turn to any place you can drive to. Siri will take you. Now, is that magic? Is that esoteric knowledge? No, but it's understanding how to get your answers. Okay. So the biggest thing is you have to ask. And as always, the biggest question to protect you from evil is, can I have your name? Give me your name. What is your name? Because because of free will, uh, the evil side can lie about anything except their name. So that's the thing. And if you get involved with something that just feels wrong, uh, fear is not given to us for destruction. Fear is given to us for protection. When we have fear, the brain releases a chemical uh, that allows us to run faster, jump higher, and lift really heavy things. It helps us to escape if we're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger or something like that. But if you are in the presence of evil and you can feel the darkness that they are bringing, absent yourself from that place and learn how to recognize that.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Absolutely. It's a great recommendation. Joe, I was thinking that we have received from God two important gifts. The first one is the consciousness. The second one is the free will. So it means we can think, we can visualize everything, we can actually ask whatever we need. And then because of this gift of free will, we can also act, right? We can seek, we can act, we can knock the door. But I think what is really missing, and you mentioned it, and I think that was a great example of knowing God, not only just believing, that sometimes we don't trust the God. Okay, I'm doing all my best. Like I am seeking for the job. I am going from one interview to another. Or, for example, I am uh, trying to make my business more successful. Or, for example, I'm fighting very serious disease. So I'm doing the best. Jumping from one doctor to another. So, but why it's not working? Because sometimes it's not only the action from our side. It's not only what we want, but it's also the question about how much we trust the God. Because at some point we should say, okay, I'm doing all the best, but now it's time to knock the door. So I asked, I did my work, my homework. I was seeking for what I really need. But now it's time actually to knock the door. I think a lot of people they are just missing this point of the knocking the door. What do you think?
Well, I think that the best way to pray is not to ask for something, but to thank God for giving it to you. Say, dear Lord, I really need something to happen for my business, but I know that you see things in a larger scale than I do. So thank you for watching for me. I'm probably one of the few people who, if I catch a red light when I'm driving, I say a prayer of thanks because I know that changes my time. And what that means is I'll get to another intersection a little bit later. Maybe if I would have gotten there at a specific time, oh, something bad would have occurred. Because there's a lot that's going on. You're not the only one on the only path. You are the one on your path. So, uh, that's it. And if you believe in God, and God has said, ask and you shall receive, knock and it shall be opened. Oh, do we have a reason to not believe that? Well, it, when my mother was dying, my sister said, you often help people through this transition. Why don't you help her? And I said, maybe she doesn't want to be helped. Maybe she's ready to die and go back to be with daddy. And who am I to ask God to interfere with her path? So that's part of it. I turn a lot of things over to God. When they're not going the way I want, I realize there might be something else involved.
Great. It's a great story to finish today. Joe, thank you so much again for sharing your wisdom, your experience. And I think it was a great, interesting discussion because I think a lot of people are confused by these different terms. And they think that the magic, esoterics, mysticism, communication with God, prayer, meditation is probably it's the same. Actually, as we mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, again, there are so many roads to God, but the truth is only one, right? So at the end of the day, um, ask and you will be given with all the answers, and the door shall be open for you.
Well, one
So,
thing,
mm,
let me just add one thing. My mother's father, my maternal grandfather, used to read cards to predict the future. but he didn't read tarot cards. He read pinochle cards. And it was just a way for him to focus. It was his way, that plus a drink or two, so that he wasn't weighed down by the common thoughts of the world. Uh, and when he did that, he was never wrong.
That's that's great. And actually, my grandma, she did the same. So you can see another coincidence.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe. Dear friends, thank you for watching us. And please subscribe to my channel, Awakening, The Journey of Soul. Please feel free to share your comments and your insights, ask questions. We learn from each other. Thank you so much. And Joe, see you next week.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye.